I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
A political power move, a new development in a highly charged cross-border trade war.
Tonight, Ontario's premier increases the cost of electricity headed southbound to the States, the potential impact on both sides of the border. Good evening. We begin with Doug Ford's continued offensive in the tariff battle with U.S. President Donald Trump.
Today, as promised, imposing a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S., threatening to do more if Trump doesn't back down. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with the latest. Siobhan.
Well, the Premier emphasized again today this is not a step he wanted to take, but it is a road he's prepared to continue to go down as long as Trump's tariffs are in place. Maximum pressure for maximum leverage. It's why the Premier says he's following through on a threat.
We're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports.
Enough electricity to power 1.5 million homes and businesses in the states of Michigan, Minnesota, and New York.
On an average, this will add around $100 per month to the bills of hardworking Americans.
On some days, those states might not actually need Ontario's energy. They typically act as a middleman and sell it to other states. Those sales would be hit with the surcharge too.
We are 30 times a net exporter. They need our power.
The move's expected to generate between $300,000 and $400,000 for Ontario every day it's in place.
Additional monies we're going to accrue in an account which the government is committing to putting back into the pockets of ratepayers to reduce bills for families and businesses.
Ford makes clear that 25% is an opening number.
I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
The Premier not specific about at what point he'd be willing to take those steps. Lecce insists Ontario will be okay if the Americans go tit for tat on blocking the flow of energy.
We already have a connection and a commitment from Quebec. We sell them power, they sell us power on a need basis in winter, summers, based on our peaks.
But the Premier is again emphasizing to American TV viewers what his end goal is.
So let's sit down at the table and let's start working on a new USMCA deal. Even though President Trump said it was the greatest deal he's ever made, nothing's changed, so I guess it's not the greatest deal now.
Doug Ford emphasized another potential energy attack that Canada could leverage, and that's adding an export tax on Alberta oil, something the Premier there has been vehemently against. But Doug Ford says it may be time to reach for that Trump card. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Meanwhile, U.S. stock markets suffered their largest drop since Donald Trump took office. There had already been some retreat by investors, prompting Fox News yesterday to raise the possibility of a recession.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us.
The Dow Jones dropped 890 points, or 2.1%. The S&P 500 was down 2.7%, and the Nasdaq was off by 4%. Here at home, the TSX lost almost 400 points. We'll have more on today's closing market numbers coming up in business.
Just ahead on CTV News, winning the Liberal leadership by a landslide. A transition of power underway in the capital. We go to Ottawa for the latest as Mark Carney prepares to take the reins on Parliament Hill.
But first, the hunt continues for 3 suspects in a mass shooting at a Scarborough pub.
A dozen people were injured after 3 men barged into the restaurant and opened fire Friday night. Tonight, we are learning more details about the violence that unfolded. CTV's Allison Hurst joins us live from the scene on progress near McCowan with the latest. Allison.
There are still vehicles here in the parking lot, and just in the last few minutes we did see someone pull in, and I spoke with them. They declined an interview on camera, but did say that they had been there on Friday night and that they didn't want to talk because they were still too fearful for their own safety. The police tape is down, but inside Piper Arms, clear signs of a violent attack.
It's like out of a movie. It's like gangland, gang style.
Bullet holes pierced through a back door, a TV above the bar, and an interior window.
It's very disheartening that we have individuals out in our community who are willing to take these types of action.
Police say 3 masked men barged in around 10:40 Friday night carrying an assault rifle and handguns and began shooting indiscriminately.
It's very concerning that, you can be anywhere and, in this case, enjoying a dinner or a drink.
7 people were struck by bullets in the arms and legs, and 5 others were injured by flying glass. Miraculously, no one died or suffered life-threatening injuries.
Well, I used to go to the old Scott House that it used to be, and ever since then it's been all kinds of different places.
Friday night was the Piper Arms grand opening next to Scarborough Town Centre.
There were a lot of delays with the opening, so I'm curious as to if this was planned.
The motive remains unconfirmed, but the shooting follows a week of gun violence linked to the towing industry. Police would not confirm a connection, but say they're looking into it.
Very scary. It's a place we plan to visit and most likely won't after this, so it's sad to hear it in our neighborhood.
Investigators have warned there will be an increased police presence in the area while they look for the suspects. Toronto police have not provided any update on the investigation, only saying that they are still looking for those 3 suspects who they believe fled in a silver car. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. Still ahead, a massive fire tears through a Brampton home, and 7 family members managed to escape with no injuries. We have the details.
More news in a moment, but first let's go outside for a live look at the city on this sunny Monday. The sun still has not set thanks to daylight saving time over the weekend, and it is a bright and beautiful start to the March break, the warmest day so far this year. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Linz, it is sure starting to feel like spring out there.
It's looking and feeling like spring out there, Natalie. What a start to the week today. And I still want to show you how warm it is in some parts of southwestern Ontario. 17 degrees at this hour in Windsor. But that's not all. 13 in London, 13 in Hamilton. We've just returned to single digits in Toronto, but still very comfortable out there at 9 degrees. Downtown, we climbed to 10.9 or 11 degrees. Similar situation at Pearson Airport. Vineland, St. Catharines, all in the teens as well. Easily our warmest day of 2025. And guess what? That could happen a couple of times this week. I want to mention the winds. They're coming out of the south and southwest, not overly strong, a little bit gusty in extreme southwest Ontario. Those winds will change direction by tomorrow night, and that's going to trigger a temporary cool down. We'll talk about that coming up. Here's the satellite and radar. We've had beautiful sunshine today. We're looking at a pretty clear night overnight tonight, and a not so low of about 6, maybe 5 degrees. Normal overnight low for this time of year is about -5 degrees. So well above seasonal, well above normal. And this pattern for the most part is going to continue this week. We'll take you through a full look at the March break forecast coming up. For now though, Natalie, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thanks Lindsay. To Ottawa now, where the new Liberal leader is promising a quick transition after meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today.
But exactly when Mark Carney will formally assume power is still unknown. CTV's senior political correspondent Mike LeCouture reports.
With many expecting a federal election sooner rather than later, Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney got right to work and right here to Parliament Hill, meeting with the old leadership and his new team.
Really honored by the mandate I received from the Liberal Party. A lot of wood to chop. Very much looking forward to meeting with the Prime Minister and getting going.
With former Liberal MP Marco Mendicino as his chief of staff, Mark Carney met with the outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for 2 hours. His next order of business was to meet with the reinvigorated caucus.
I think Mr. Carney is what Canada needs as a whole.
There are people that have joined across the country explicitly who have told me, I've never voted Liberal before, but I'll be voting Liberal this election because of Mark Carney's leadership.
Carney won an overwhelming mandate from Liberals, taking the leadership with nearly 86% of the vote. MPs clearly feel they have momentum to carry into an eventual federal election.
I know that now that we have a new leader, people are going to be excited to run for us, so I don't have any worries about us finding excellent candidates for the upcoming election.
Just when Carney will call that election, he wouldn't say. But he did tell reporters he's moving swiftly on a seamless transition from the Trudeau government.
Just had a meeting with the caucus. There is tremendous energy in the Liberal caucus. As you saw last evening, this is a united party with full of energy, to serve Canadians.
Trudeau and Carney weren't seen together at all in what could be the Prime Minister's last day on Parliament Hill. But Conservatives continue to try and paint the two leaders with the same red brush.
The Liberal establishment has installed Justin Trudeau's economic advisor as the next Liberal leader to trick Canadians into giving Liberals a fourth term in power. But he's just like Justin, and he's more of the same.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also took aim at the new Liberal leader.
That is his plan for the economic uncertainty of Donald Trump, for the threats of Donald Trump, is to give money to millionaires, to cut jobs, and to cut health care.
It's unclear just when he'll be sworn in as Prime Minister, but he'll be taking over a country in the middle of a trade war with the U.S. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
A Brampton family is sharing details of a terrifying morning after a fire broke out and ripped through their home.
The damage was extensive, but remarkably, no one was hurt. CTV's John Musselman reports from the scene.
This video shows the garage of the home fully engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived on the scene just after 5 a.m. 7 family members, 5 living on the main 2 floors and 2 people living in the basement, were able to get out safely. Homeowner Debbie Chitbrand says she could smell the smoke and it quickly filled the home. She screamed for everyone to get outside.
Then I started screaming in the house and said there's a fire. And the kids, they woke up because they heard me screaming. So they woke up and they grabbed the 2 dogs and we just grabbed our coat and just run out.
Everyone is okay. 2 family dogs were also rescued, but the cat was nowhere to be found.
She's still in the house, but I don't know where she hid. I don't know.
The family has lived in this Brampton home for 17 years. There was extensive damage to the garage and everything that was stored inside, including a motorcycle.
It's awful. It's devastating. I can't believe it, really. Like, there's so many weekends that we were able to just have fun in the garage and play pool and stuff like that.
There was some good news by the end of the day. The family cat was located safe and sound under a bed on the 2nd floor. The family will temporarily relocate to a relative's home in Orangeville while repairs can be completed. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. John Musselman, CTV News in Brampton.
Niagara police have charged 2 men in connection with a fire that ripped through a row of townhomes under construction in Fort Erie. Emergency crews were called to the scene of Allen Trail and Whispering Woods Trail Saturday morning. As you can see, the structures were fully engulfed in flames. Police say 2 men were seen leaving the scene before it broke out. 36-year-old Michael Magin and 45-year-old Jason Batt are both charged with break and enter to commit mischief.
A man's in hospital after he was stabbed downtown this afternoon. Police were called to the Young Bloor area shortly after 2 p.m. The victim was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Police say they arrested 1 person in connection with the stabbing, but another suspect is still on the loose. They did not give a description of the person they're searching for. Police are asking anyone with information to get in touch.
Meanwhile, 1 person was sent to hospital and a man has been arrested following an assault at Warden Station. Police say it happened shortly before 7 a.m. on the subway platform. The victim was taken to hospital with minor injuries. A man in his 40s was arrested at the scene. Police have not released any details about the circumstances leading up to the assault. So far, no word on any charges.
There are calls tonight for the city to act faster to protect places of worship and faith-based schools from protesters.
A new bylaw intended to shield vulnerable populations from harassment and hate appears to have stalled at City Hall. CTV's Beth McDonnell explains.
At one point, Mount Sinai Hospital says there were protesters on the scaffolding of this February 2024 protest, while this Jewish girls' school in North York was shot at 3 times in a matter of months. These events and others led Toronto City Council to look at creating a proposed bylaw to protect vulnerable institutions from protests, so-called bubble zones. But so far, a potential bylaw hasn't materialized.
There is fear because you never know when these protesters will show up.
York Centre City Councillor James Pasternak has been pushing for a bylaw with an emphasis on keeping Torontonians safe from hate at places of worship, faith-based schools, and cultural institutions. He says it's been in front of city staff since October 2023, delayed now for 18 months. In December, a motion was passed for the city manager to come up with something in the first quarter of 2025, but there is still no date for it to be examined.
Well, I don't think they see the seriousness and urgency of this. I mean, places of worship, faith-based schools, and cultural institutions are under siege in this city. And we've got roving mobs who the police have been unable to contain.
In a statement, the city manager says staff have been advancing the work since December and to ensure open, inclusive, transparent, and unbiased community engagement that informs the proposed bylaw, more time will be required to implement public consultation. City staff will report back to council in a timely manner once the public consultation is completed. Last year, Brampton and Vaughan created bylaws making it illegal to protest within 100 meters of places of worship after it saw heated demonstrations.
This was one tool that we had in our toolkit to make those communities more safe. The fact that it is further delayed is completely unacceptable.
Others say taking time to ensure broad public consultation is worthwhile, as they say bubble zones infringe on freedom of expression and freedom of assembly.
Of course, people are entitled to physical safety, and that's why the police already have very broad powers, including under the criminal code, to intervene in case of violence.
What about the charter rights of a person who wants to go without harassment to take their child to a daycare or to a school? What about the charter rights of someone who wants to go into a place of worship? They have charter rights too.
Pasternak says people can protest all they want. He just wants to keep them away from the entrances of vulnerable institutions. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Local taxi companies are urging the city to extend its Buy Canadian campaign to ride-sharing businesses. A letter signed by Beck, Co-op, Toronto One Taxi, and Hover calls for a ban on American ride-hailing companies such as Uber and Lyft from city property and city-issued phones. The taxi companies say many local businesses now offer app-based ride-hailing and payments and should be prioritized over American services. They're also calling on the city to make it easier for drivers to work for Canadian companies by moving them to a single city-issued license that could be used for any platform based in Toronto. A spokesperson for Mayor Olivia Chow released a statement which reads in part, "We are reviewing options with the mayor's economic action team about how best to support workers and businesses in all sectors in response to Donald Trump's unjustified trade war." Mayor Chow supports taking a Team Canada approach and encourages Torontonians to look at options to buy Canadian in their daily purchases.
A man and a woman were taken to hospital following a multi-vehicle crash in Scarborough. It happened shortly before 10:30 a.m. near McCowan Road and Huntingwood Drive. 3 vehicles collided in the area. All the drivers involved remained at the scene. Police say a man and a woman were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The cause of the crash is still under investigation.
Meanwhile, one person was taken to hospital as a precaution after a vehicle struck a home in Etobicoke. Emergency crews were called to the home on Netherley Drive near Finch and Kipling just before 12:45 p.m. The cause of the collision is still under investigation. So far, there's been no word on whether charges will be laid.
A high-stakes meeting will be held tomorrow involving the U.S. Secretary of State and a Ukrainian delegation. Ukraine's president met with the Saudi Crown Prince today ahead of his team's meeting with Marco Rubio in the port city of Jeddah. It will happen tomorrow amid tensions between Washington and Kyiv over efforts to reach a peace agreement and a deal on U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. Volodymyr Zelensky is not expected to meet America's top diplomat in person. Rubio has now arrived in Saudi Arabia, where he hopes to find out if the Ukrainians are interested in talking peace and how far they are prepared to go.
We have some good news tonight from Rome, where the Pope's prognosis is no longer guarded. Doctors say the 88-year-old pontiff remains stable and has shown a good response to his treatment for double pneumonia. He continues to improve, but is expected to remain in hospital for several more days because of the complexity of his clinical condition. Officials say the Pope followed the Vatican's week-long spiritual retreat via video conference today. He was admitted to hospital more than 3 weeks ago.
In the UK today, the King hailed the work of the Commonwealth in bringing countries together. The monarch and other senior royals gathered at London's Westminster Abbey for the annual Commonwealth Day service. The King leads the international organization of 56 nations. That includes Canada. In his message today, he said it is his hope the Commonwealth will continue its vital work to restore the disrupted harmony of the planet for the sake of younger generations.
Back here at home, the big melt is underway along the Toronto Harbour.
Revealing a winter's worth of garbage from Lake Ontario, CTV's Scott Lightfoot has more on the team tasked with trapping all that trash.
On a sunny, spring-like day, people flock to Toronto's waterfront. But as the ice slowly recedes, a winter's worth of garbage reveals itself.
A lot of the litter that escapes into our harbor and into our Don River stays in our harbor.
For the 5th straight year, a trash collection strategy will again be deployed in the waters along the waterfront, including trash traps, essentially floating garbage receptacles.
They sit on the surface of the water and they move up and down. The water is then filtered through this mesh fabric, and it's such that it can actually capture items that are as small as 2 millimeters.
As well as 2 waste sharks, aquatic drones that scoop trash from the water. Last year, these tools helped to remove more than 640 kilograms of garbage from the lake.
And the goal is really to use these trash trapping devices to see what we could pull from the lake and what we could learn from the debris that we were collecting.
What researchers have learned is just how much trash is in the water. Things like cigarette butts, plastic bottles, food wrappers, straws, even construction materials. Researchers have also learned that those who use the waterfront aren't the ones directly responsible for most of the garbage.
I think a lot of the litter that enters in the Toronto Harbourfront either escapes via a storm drain on the street that goes down into the waterfront directly, or into the Don River. The Don River has an awful lot of litter.
Several storm drain traps have also been deployed in an effort to keep some of Toronto's trash from ending up in the water. The trash collection effort will launch in May. With the help of human-powered skimming, hopes to reduce the amount of refuse found floating along the waterfront.
We have increased the amount of cleanup that we do every year because we've increased capacity with humans and or more traps, but we still are finding lots of debris every day.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Coming up on CTV News, hitting the snooze button on sleepless nights. A new drug might be just what the doctor ordered for some patients in need of real rest. The details later in the newscast.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, it's Fraud Prevention Month, and an old scam is making the rounds again. It's the pet adoption scam. Victims see pets online they want to adopt, but after they send money, the dog or cat never arrives. All of that story just ahead.
Well, what a week to spend some time outside. Maybe you want to venture out for a skate tomorrow. We can once again expect a mix of sun and cloud and double-digit temperatures. That's not all. Ski conditions across the province remain excellent. There's a great base at so many resorts, and it's comfortable out there temperature-wise, with an exception. We are going to cool down for Wednesday, but then the mild air is set to return. There's another trade-off, though, heading into the weekend. We'll talk about that coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
Pet adoption scams hit an all-time high during the pandemic when many families were looking for dogs or cats for companionship.
Criminals are at it again, posting ads on social media claiming to give cats and dogs away for free, but it's all a scam. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Natalie. Scammers post photos of dogs and cats and say they're free of charge, but once a victim responds, they're told they need to pay for paperwork, vaccines, and shipping. The pet never shows up, and the victims lose their money.
She kept my wife company. She would watch golf with me on Sundays.
Casey Andre of Scarborough says it was a sad day last fall when he had to say goodbye to his beloved cat, Gabby, due to a serious illness.
We had to put our cat down back in September, and my wife and I agreed that in January, in the new year, we would start looking for another cat.
Andre says he recently saw an ad on Facebook that said kittens for rehoming and adoption. After he clicked on the link and filled out some information, he was sent a photo of a kitten. He agreed to adopt it and was sent a transfer of pet ownership. The cat would be free, but there was a $155 registration fee. After he paid that, he was told there was a $208 charge for vaccines. After that was paid, they wanted another $301 for delivery. Andre says at that point he refused to pay and knew it was a scam.
I feel bad that I was taken.
I'm sure it was very, heartbreaking for them to go through that.
The Toronto Humane Society says when adopting an animal, you need to do your research and make sure you're dealing with a reputable source.
Whether that is, a rescue or a Humane Society shelter, or there are rehoming platforms.
To avoid pet scams, beware if pets are offered for free or a low price. Then there are requests for money for insurance, documents, shipping crates, vaccines, and veterinary charges. Also be cautious if they won't meet in person and all correspondence is online. The Ontario SPCA and Humane Society have animals for adoption. The fees are stated up front, and there is a lot of information about the pets.
They're going to be able to tell you their history, their behavior, what their medical status is, have some health records, what they're like in the home, their personality.
Andre says he's decided to adopt a cat using the Humane Society, but he wanted to share his story to warn others.
I got taken for some money, but I want other people not to be scammed on Facebook.
And prices will vary, but adopting a cat through the Humane Society is about $300 and a dog is about $600. Animals will be microchipped, come with ownership documents, and be up to date on their vaccinations. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, if I was a kid on March break, I'd be loving this. You're getting winter fun with this spring-like weather. It's perfect.
It is so phenomenal. I'm so thrilled for the kids, and we saw so many of them having such a blast where you were at Lake Ridge on the tubing hill today.
Yes.
How cool was that?
Oh, it was the best. I'd never done that before, and what a fun spot to spend March break. Lots of families out there today, and I did see at least one skier in a t-shirt today.
Perfect.
There it is.
It is Canada. We have been waiting for this. We've had quite a winter here in southern Ontario. Of course, there's some good that comes with it. Ski hills are running with a great snow base, but there's, a bit of a downside too. In some cases, there's going to be a little bit of melting continuing to happen this week. Let's get you all caught up. I first want to show you what it looked like this morning. What a start to March break. Different sunrise time now that the clocks, we sprung forward over the weekend. What a sunrise, though. My goodness, just a gorgeous start to Monday and to March break. As mentioned, we made it to a high of 11 degrees today. I think we'll take that. It looks like we're going to reach 11 tomorrow, potentially as well. Still 8 degrees this hour in Toronto. Worth mentioning that it's not looking and feeling like spring everywhere. Still very much winter in western sections of Canada, especially across the prairies, and in northern parts of our province, Ontario, where there's been snow today. So if you're looking for winter, it is still around, but not in Windsor, where it is 16 degrees right now. Compare that to Ottawa at only 4. We are expected to be warmer than that through the overnight hours tonight here in Toronto. Forecast low of about 6 degrees, and then tomorrow at a glance, mix of sun and cloud. We might see an increase in cloud cover at times as the cold front moves through, and then behind that front, the temperature drops eventually to an overnight low of about -3 degrees, wind chill -5. Here's the current satellite and radar. I mentioned that snow, but it's been sunshine across the south. Big area of low pressure to our north. We are in the warm sector, but there's the cold front for tomorrow. It's going to bring with it some pretty strong winds in addition to the temperature drop. Blink and you might miss it. There's the cold front swinging through. Again, increase in cloud cover expected tomorrow midday, but we should still be able to enjoy a fair amount of sunshine. Then that cloud cover increases further through the day on Wednesday. This is our one cooler day this week. You'll notice the temperature difference compared to the rest of it. And we go from southerly winds that we're enjoying right now to northwesterly winds later tomorrow, late afternoon and into the evening. And by Wednesday, we are going to be tapping into a bit more of an easterly wind. So there will be a bit of a chill out there. Just be mindful of that as you continue to make your March break plans. Daytime high around 0. That's also the forecast overnight low. And then temperatures are going to climb once again. 9 degrees for your Thursday. 11 again for Friday with loads of sunshine. We might get even warmer as we make our way into next weekend, but there is a bit of a trade-off. Looks like the active weather is going to arrive in the form of rain, maybe a thunderstorm as well, and it could be measurable rainfall at that. Hey, there's an early look at your St. Paddy's Day next Monday. At this point, the forecast is looking pretty sunny. That's the weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Coming up on CTV News, getting rid of gulls. The TTC looks to fend off the flocks at Leslie Barnes. We'll tell you the plan that's for the birds when we come back. Were you yawning more than usual today with the change to daylight saving time?
That feeling of fatigue is the reality almost every day for nearly half of Canadians who struggle to get a good night's sleep. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has more.
Feeling tired after moving your clocks forward on the weekend? You're not alone.
Whether it made it worse or not, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it doesn't help. I think any kind of time change, whether it's daylight savings time or time change through travel, really does impact sleep. I'm very sensitive to any kind of changes.
Martine Taylor suffers from chronic insomnia, and a recent Leger poll shows almost half of Canadians suffer from the condition, but recently she began using a drug called Devigo.
I felt it really helped me. I've been taking benzodiazepines prior to that, and my GP was always reminding me of the long-term risks of being on that type of medication too long.
Devigo works on a neurotransmitter called orexin, which causes people to wake up. The drug shuts orexin down for about 7 hours.
What it's really for is to help people stay asleep, or for the people that need to get up in the middle of the night for whatever reason, get back to sleep.
Dr. David Greenberg says it has minimal side effects and is not addictive.
We have to stop thinking of sleep as something you do when you're not busy.
He says sleep is increasingly recognized as a vital factor in long-term health.
Things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, dementia, mood disorders like depression and anxiety. And those are known things and well documented.
He also points out subtle ways it affects a person's life by affecting their co-workers, their partner, and even their children. Canadian experts recently drew up a new roadmap for better sleep. Go to sleeponitcanada.ca for more information. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
A child has tested positive for measles in Hamilton. Hamilton Public Health Services says the infection is travel-related. Health officials say people may have been exposed at the Hamilton Medical Center and walk-in clinic on the morning of March 5th. Others may have been exposed at a Costco location in Stony Creek between 3:30 and 7:30 p.m. that same day. There is also concern about possible exposure at the Stony Creek Medical Walk-in Clinic and McMaster Children's Hospital Emergency Department on the evening of March 6th.
Food Bank Mississauga launched its spring drive today. The goal is to raise $1 million by the end of April. Scott's Canada is returning as sponsor and will match donations dollar for dollar. Last year, Mississauga saw the fastest growing rate of food bank use in the entire province.
A note for subway riders, there are early closures on a stretch of Line 1 starting tonight. Trains will stop running between Finch and St. Clair stations at 11 each night until Friday. The early closure is to accommodate track work in the area. Shuttle buses will operate until the end of service around 2 a.m. The TTC says staff will be available at all stations to assist customers.
Meanwhile, the TTC will soon be the source of some loud noise in the East End. The transit agency is going to sound cannons to keep seagulls away from the Leslie streetcar facility. Officials say the building's large green roof is an ideal environment for the birds and attracts up to 15,000 each year. It says it has tried several methods to keep them away, but none have worked so far. The plan is to start using the sound cannons this week.
The federal government has honored thousands of women who came to Canada from the Caribbean starting in the 1950s.
A new plaque is honoring their contributions and outlining the history of a targeted immigration program. CTV's Carol Charles has the story.
Here it is. It was a memorable moment to recognize many Black women who came to Canada in the post-Second World War era. A new life and a future. That was the lure for thousands of women to leave everything and everyone they knew and move to Canada. The West Indian Domestic Scheme was a targeted immigration program in 1955 to help meet the demands for domestic labor. Close to 3,000 women from the Caribbean came to Canada to be employed as domestic workers at a time when discriminatory immigration policies limited the entry of non-white immigrants. King of the road. Patricia Brereton left Barbados in 1964 and arrived in Canada with 42 other women, most bound for either Montreal or Toronto.
I was young and adventurous. I wanted to see greener pastures, and Canada felt like the place that I should come.
But settling in wasn't easy, especially when placed with her first family.
She showed me to my room, which was in the attic. This was a huge house. I was so scared.
The women who came to Canada as part of the scheme were paid less than they anticipated while working long hours.
A mountain of clothes that probably was there for like 3 months that I had to earn. Polishing the floor, getting down my knees and stuff like that. I wasn't used to that.
She was ready to call it quits, but her mother persuaded her to tough it out, eventually working with 3 different families within the first year, the last being the most rewarding experience.
They were great. The father was my children's pediatrician. He's the only person that I've known like for 61 years. He was at my birthday party, my 85th birthday party.
After a year of domestic work, the women were granted landed immigrant status and allowed to seek educational and employment opportunities in other fields.
I wanted to go higher and higher and higher. I always told the children to reach for the stars, and that's what I was doing.
One of her most ambitious ventures was the purchase of a property in Sarnia. The property was a daycare for the elderly, where she dedicated the next 22 years of her life.
I started out as a domestic, as I said, and I ended up as an entrepreneur.
The commemorative plaque issued by Parks Canada is a token of thanks to these women who gave so much.
It's fantastic to think that they have really and truly acknowledged us for all that we did. You know, the families that we served and helped and children that we raised and stuff like that.
The plaque is on display here at the Blackhurst Cultural Centre. Next year, Parks Canada will install the plaque outside of Bathurst subway station, where many of the domestics socialized and connected during the early years. Carol Charles, CTV News.
Still to come on CTV News at 6, sticker shock explained on Loblaw labels. The grocery giant making clear to customers the impact of Trump tariffs on product prices.
If the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
Updating our top stories now, a new threat as Ontario cuts power to Michigan, Minnesota, and to New York. Today, the Premier said it is enough electricity to power 1.5 million customers in those states. The 25% surcharge is in response to the U.S. tariffs.
It's very concerning that, you know, you can be anywhere and, you know, in this case, enjoying a dinner or a drink.
Police continue to look for suspects and a motive following Friday night's mass shooting at a Toronto pub. 7 people were hit when 3 masked men barged in and opened fire. Remarkably, no one suffered life-threatening injuries.
Really honored by the mandate I received from the Liberal Party. A lot of wood to chop. Very much looking forward to meeting with the Prime Minister and getting going.
New Liberal leader Mark Carney says there will be a quick transition of power, but he has not provided an exact timeline on when he will become Prime Minister. Carney will also have to choose a cabinet following last night's resounding victory in the leadership race.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
In business news, the oldest company in North America filed for court protection as it struggles to pay its rent and other bills. BNN Bloomberg's Morella Fernandez has the details.
The company is privately owned and says the tariff uncertainty has made it extremely challenging to get financing. Things are so bad that without more funds, the retailer said it wouldn't be able to pay employees. The company employs about 9,300 people and runs 80 retail stores across Canada. The owners want to streamline operations and prepare for a liquidation sale. They aren't planning to close all stores, saying high-performing retail locations would be kept open. Alberta Oil Company's Whitecap Resources and Veren are joining forces. The all-stock deal will create a new company with an enterprise value of roughly $15 billion. Now, under the terms, Veren shareholders will own about 52% of the company, which will be led by Whitecap's management team. And fewer Canadians drove across the border last month. There were 23% fewer trips to the U.S. than last February, the second month of a decline. Now, whether it's anti-American sentiment or a lower Canadian dollar isn't clear, but Canadians have been efforting to buy Canada with the ongoing trade war with the U.S. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar ending the day down at 69.24. West Texas Intermediate dropped more than $1, ending the day at 66.03. Western Canadian Select is up today more than $1.40. It ended the day at $54.49. The TSX in Toronto sank 378 points, or 1.5%. Those are your business headlines in the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom. I'm Marilla Fernandez.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Canada's largest grocers introducing new symbols in the wake of those U.S. tariffs. Loblaws adding a T to products that are sourced from the United States and are increasing in price because of the duties. There will also be a maple leaf symbol on items that were prepared in Canada with domestic and/or imported ingredients. There may be a cost increase if any of the ingredients are sourced from south of the border. Customers could notice some changes as early as next week.
The Bank of Canada is expected to slash its benchmark interest rate this week amid uncertainty caused by the trade war with the U.S. Most economists are anticipating a quarter-point cut on Wednesday as the bank waits to see how long the trade war will last. The bank has cut its key interest rate 6 consecutive times, bringing it down to 3%. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem has stated the bank will use its policy rate to smooth the impact of tariffs. However, he has warned if the duties are long-lasting, the economy will not recover the same way as it did from COVID-19.
To sports, the Toronto Raptors will be looking for a different result as they face Washington for the second time in 3 days.
Makes a move.
Celebration gave way to disappointment Saturday when a basket by Jamal Sheed at the buzzer was ruled 0.1 second too late. Toronto ended up losing 118 to 117. The Raptors will host the Wizards again tonight and will be without starters Jakob Poeltl and Grady Dick.
Marner lofts it back in. McMahon trying to catch up to that. In behind the net, Bobby McMahon. Marner scores!
And the Maple Leafs are also hoping to get back in the win column tonight. Toronto lost its 3rd straight game on Saturday in a 7-4 decision to Colorado. The Leafs continue their road trip this evening, taking on Utah for the second time this season. Toronto won the first game 3-2.
Point Schofield, fresh legs, another shot. Campbell makes the save. Loose puck, and they score! Tipped in front.
Meanwhile, the Scepters head into a 10-day break on a losing note. Toronto lost 2-1 in overtime to the defending champion Minnesota Frost yesterday. The second-place Scepters don't play again until March 19th against the New York Sirens. The PWHL trade deadline is on Thursday.
Barger had a nice day on the road in Port Charlotte yesterday, went 2 for 3, scored a pair of runs. Swings and drives it way out to right field. If it's fair, it's gone, and it is way gone.
Addison Barger homered for the Blue Jays this afternoon, capping off an 8-3 win over the Astros in Dunedin, Florida. Bo Bichette also went deep for the Jays, who roared back from a 3-0 deficit. They play Minnesota tomorrow as spring training action continues. Toronto opens the regular season on March 27th at home against the Orioles.
Still ahead tonight, there's a spring in the step of kids right across the GTA today, kicking off a sunny March break under the sea or atop the slopes. We've got a look at the fan favorite ways to spend a day off school.
Tonight, Ontario's power move.
If the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
As Trump's tariff policies shock the markets. That story and more later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special hello to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010. What a way to kick off the March break. Sunshine and warm temperatures to start the week.
And there's no shortage of things for families to do. CTV's Jessica Smith spoke to people out and about, making the most of their time off from school and work today.
It's one of the busiest weeks for families each year. March break is a time full of family-friendly fun, full of attractions and activities.
Today we're just killing some time on March break, so we're able to go see the Raptors game tonight.
For underwater aquatic exploration, you can pop into Ripley's Aquarium downtown Toronto.
We've added
new dive shows, like extra dive shows. We've done a scavenger hunt, and we extend our hours till 11 o'clock at night.
Where you can scope out your favorite sea creatures.
I like the sharks. Probably the stingray. I really like the piranhas. Probably like the hammerhead shark and the pufferfish.
Or hit up the ski hills at Lakewood Resort.
Just fun. Just like skiing down. Nice weather. I feel like it's very warmer than it was, and because in the wintertime it was very cold, so this is kind of like a relief from the cold.
Or just enjoy getting out and soaking up the time with family and the sunshine.
Oh yeah, that helps a lot. The sunshine is great.
With a stellar forecast throughout March break, whether you're spending time inside, outside, downtown, or on a ski hill, there's no shortage of options for families. Jessica Smith, CTV News, Toronto.
You couldn't ask for better weather to kick off March break.
No kidding. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of it this week, the sunshine.
Yeah, a bit of a repeat for tomorrow, although it is possible we could have a little more in the way of cloud cover at times. It is going to be mild once again. Here's a look at what you will be waking up to tomorrow morning. Again, that cloud cover being accompanied by a cold front, which will eventually send the temperature down, but not before we reach a daytime high of around 11 degrees. So once again, double digits around the GTA. Then at night, we slip back below freezing. There will be a bit of a wind chill because those winds will be quite gusty. And then Wednesday is our one cool day. It's going to be mild again for Thursday and Friday, sunny too, but already watching the weekend for some potentially significant rain, maybe a thunderstorm as well. Early next week looks a little more seasonal. Natalie and Nathan.
Thank you, Lindsay. Be sure to join Heather Butts tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Andrea Case with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. Have a good night.